Hello and welcome to the RPG Academy Twitch channel. My name is Michael, and we're here tonight for another episode of Detention Live. Joining me as always is Chris. Chris, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
And joining us tonight is our special guest co-host. We have Doug Shute from Doug VC Gaming. I also know you as the guy who hooks me up with Free League stuff. So Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we're very excited to get a chance to talk to you tonight. I think, again, there's a chance, I think it's still up in the air, that you might be coming to a Catacon this year.
I'm going to try. I've got quite a few events that are right around that time. So I'm wondering if I can just fly in and fly out, for your event. And I hear you've got a great community over there. So I'm excited to witness it all myself in person.
I like to think we have a great little community. I'm a little biased, of course. Chris is one of them, so he's also a little bit biased. But I would say we both think it's a fun little time. But in case there are people out there who aren't yet familiar with you and the work that you do, or just any of the toys and games behind you that you want to share, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I will apologize again. I literally had to grab my food and run out the restaurant because they were so slow. So I'm going to be eating a little bit as we go, but I will mute my microphone. So if I start talking, which I will, make sure you tell me to unmute myself.
You're good. You're good. So yeah, I'm Doug Shute. I do. I'm the content director for Free League Publishing. I do their YouTube channel and do that for them. I also do all their North American events. So GenCon, Origins, PAX Unplugged, PAX West, PAX East. I'm trying to think where else I'm going to be. I'm going to be at SuperCon here in a couple weeks as well in Miami. I just did Phoenix Fan Fusion. I'll be at CharCon because that's fairly close to me. It's only a couple hours away. I just kind of go all over the country and kind of show off Free League products. And then on top of that, I'm a podcaster and host, and I do all sorts of streams and interviews and reviews and on Victory Condition Gaming. And then I also have some apparel lines. So kind of a little bit of everything, a lot of this, you notice that's kind of a trend in this industry is everybody has multiple hats on that they wear. And because we're not really in the gaming industry to make a lot of money. We're just there to kind of promote fun and having people create really cool stories, have really great experiences. And if we can make a little bit of money on this, doing it,
then no complaint.
Absolutely. So we all kind of try to make it work by doing various things in this industry.
I will be at Origins, by the way.
Oh, nice.
I'm coming up early Thursday, staying through Sunday. My schedule isn't packed, so there's a chance I might see, or if we can connect after the show. I'd love to maybe hook up for lunch, or if there's a chance I can get to a game, that'd be great as well. But again, super excited that you're here again. You can be found at Doug VC Gaming on the Twitter. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Victory Condition Gaming.
Victory Condition Gaming. So we'll put links to everything in the show notes, make it easy for people to find you and get a hold of you. But we're going to kick off the show as we often do with our I almost said pass the torch question, wrong podcast, with our extracurricular. And this is where we just talk about stuff we've been up to recently. It can be games that we're playing, movies we've watched, shows we're watching, books we're reading, whatever the case may be, just sharing with strangers on the internet. I'm actually going to have Chris go first so that I can eat some more food.
All right, perfect. Well, Diablo 4 came out. So a lot of my time has been spent building my little ice sorcerer up as I run around trying to save the world from Lilith, the daughter of hatred or anger, one of the two. Anyways, trying to save the world. Other than that, a lot of work. Still doing that. Our office actually grew and they adding staff. So
nice.
I'm back to hiring and training and running the showroom at the same time. So I'm not going to have much hair left by the end of the year, I don't think. But once we get the office going, it'll be good. It'll be exciting. Other than that, I really haven't been watching a lot of TV because Diablo 4 has kind of absorbed any free time I have. So
that, and there's a writer's strike going on, so I've noticed that we don't have a whole lot of new content coming out on a lot of different platforms and network TV lately. It's kind of a bummer.
And I hear that's what's delaying Deadpool 3.
It is, yeah. They pushed it back, or yeah, they pushed it to 2020. Was it May 2024 now or something?
I don't know.
I don't remember. Yeah, it got pushed back, but I don't know if that was specifically the reason. But I'm sure it's all rolling together and stuff. Like things are getting pushed back. Things that are in production are on hiatus now. So, companies pay writers because they're the ones who actually create the stuff. Without them, nothing works. So just pay them what they're worth.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I actually thought about buying Diablo. Like I've not really played any of the other games, but I knew you played it a lot. I thought, well, I might be good at that, and I'll jump on and maybe play with Chris sometime. But that price tag for a game, I don't know if I'm going to like. And they just finally announced when the new Spider-Man game's going to come out, which will be a day one buy for me. So I'm going to have to wait. So maybe a couple of years we can circle back and I'll play when Diablo 5 comes out. I'll play Diablo 4 with you.
All right. I've played every Diablo, so I've enjoyed them. And I've got a couple friends that I jump on and we run around and do stuff with. So it's fun. I like the fact that it limits you to a party of 4.
Oh.
So I don't get trapped in with a party of 10 trying to do some big raid, and I can be like, all right, I got an hour, guys. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice for my schedule. That way I don't have to feel obligated to stick around for longer, and then I'm up till 3 a.m. screaming, when is this going to be over? So it's kind of nice.
Nice. All right, Doug, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately, buddy.
Well, I don't know if you can tell, but I might have, a liking of Transformers. If you can see them in the background, I've been a Transformers fan since, G1. I grew up with it, when it came out. And I actually have been, I get to watch the new movie, Rise of the Beast. I went and watched it for a second time. I brought my kid with me this afternoon and went and watched that again. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's a Transformers movie, so I feel like I'm obligated. It's definitely a lot better than the Michael Bay movies. I'm not a big fan of the Michael Bay movies.
I think that first one, the first Transformers, is actually pretty good. I thought Bumblebee was pretty good. The others are straight trash.
Oh, they're garbage. They're hot garbage. Bumblebee was good. I think this one was kind of on that same level. If you go into it thinking you're going to get some sort of cinematic masterpiece, you're going to be disappointed. But I think this one was probably the closest to an actual Transformers live action cartoon as we could have. If you were watching the 80s cartoon, those were kind of random, and there was a lot of stuff that wasn't really realistic about some of those plot lines and some of the plot holes and everything. It kind of felt like that a little bit, and I love the fact that they brought in the Maximals and the Terracons, and we got to see a little bit more of the fandom. You could definitely tell they were catering to some of the G1 fans, some of the Beast Wars fans, and some of the Michael Bay movie fans, because those are all different fandoms that have come through over the years. And I think they did a pretty decent job. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't an outstanding movie, but I hope it's successful enough so that they can greenlight some additional movies.
As someone who loves movies, again, I wrote a game about bad movies. I'm a kind of a connoisseur of bad movies, and there is a difference between a good movie and a fun movie. Now, and sometimes those are the same thing. Like I think the Into the Spider-Verse and now the Across the Spider-Verse are some of the best movies ever made, and are so fun and rewatchable and heartfelt, and they make me cry. But sometimes movies are so bad that they're good or they're fun. So there's these different quadrants that things can fall in, and there's nothing wrong with being a movie that knows what it is and is going for fun. If it delivers on it, then that's all that really matters. Unless it costs $200 million, and then that kind of thing. They kind of did it themselves. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Absolutely. So anything else?
I'm trying to think what else I've been up to. I've just been organizing. Most of my free time is just trying to get everything organized for all these events. It seems like I've got events going on every, at least a couple every month at this point. I'm trying to think. I think that's been about it. I did pick up the new. I've got it right here. I haven't even opened it. The new Avatar starter for Magpie. So I'm excited to dive into that. That's the next project that I'm trying to get to the table and make some content for here in the next day or two.
That's also on our short list for a sample adventure. Someone's going to try to run that for us. So hopefully, I loved that cartoon. I mentioned on here a while back. I didn't watch it when it was popular, and a lot of people kept telling me how good it was, and it never found time for it. And then it was actually my youngest son, found it on Netflix like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And he's like, Dad, there's a show I'm watching. It's so cool. You should watch it with me. I'm like, okay. So we started it over. And the first couple episodes are really kiddie. Like they're absolutely just, child cartoons. And I'm like, is this the show that everyone's telling me is so good? And I went to Twitter. I'm like, hey, what is this? Am I watching the wrong thing? And everyone says, just keep watching. And by about the 4th or 5th episode, I was hooked. And then I think it's 3 seasons. I think I've watched the whole show twice through already, which is probably nothing compared to some of the families. But it is such good storytelling once it gets going.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't really dove into the whole. I haven't really got into the whole Avatar IP as much as I probably should have. I kind of know a little bit about it, but I just know that Magpie's doing some really cool stuff. And like I was at Target, so I'm like, I'll pick this up. Yeah. I mean, it's $25 and like there's a ton of stuff in there.
I actually bought 2. One will be in a Catacon price.
Oh, nice.
Chris, so what's your Avatar history? Have you ever messed with a cartoon?
Oh, yeah. Similar to what you said, except for Quentin's younger than yours. So he found it when it was on cable and it's like, hey, let's watch this. And then we ended up buying all the seasons on DVD and we've watched it multiple times too. I'm a huge fan of it. I love how it grows. Like the story matures as the characters mature too. So I like that fact. And Toph is just the best in my opinion too.
Yeah. Toph's pretty awesome. Right? But again, there's so many just moments, quotable, like my girlfriend turned into the moon. That's a bummer, man. Yeah. It cracks me up every time. All right. So as for myself, I am getting ready for Origins. That's next week. Nice. So I'm kind of getting ready for that. I'm not running anything there. I'm going just as press and play some games, and then I'll tweet and probably podcast about it. So I'm very excited about that. I've actually I'm also going to GenCon, and I'm that person that checks the GenCon schedule update. Like every 6 hours, they show everything that was added, deleted, or returned. And I've already modified my schedule multiple times because of that, because there's things that I really wanted that couldn't get into. And I've a couple of those I've now since then been able to get into and I'm very excited about. One is ScoobyNatural. So this is at GenCon, not Origins, which is they're using the Everyday Heroes version of 5e from Evil Genius Games to play an alternate version of the Supernatural episode where they crossed over with Scooby-Doo. So you will play either a Scooby-Doo or some of the Supernatural guys in a cartoon version of that show. And I'm like, yes, please, sign me up for that one. But unfortunately, it was sold out the first time through, and I just checking that every 6 hours or so, and one popped in. I dropped some other stupid thing I'd picked up in the meantime, canceled it, and got that ticket. Very, very excited about that. And then the other thing I got in just today, the Marvel 616 game. They have several instances of a game you can play there. I mentioned before, I love superheroes. It's like my second favorite RPG genre. I absolutely just love superhero games. Most of them are bad, and I'm always on the lookout for a good one. And I wasn't really impressed with what I saw about this 616 game, but I'm always happy to be proven wrong. I hope it's my favorite game ever. And so when I saw there was a chance to actually play it, I signed up for that one just to go in there. It's called the Planet Hulk Grandmaster Arena. It's just going to be a mashup of all these different characters fighting. But, I mean, for a 2-hour demo of the game, that's all I really care about. So hopefully I'll have some good stuff to report back from GenCon about some of those games. And I did get into Dragonbane. That was literally the top of my list, the game I wanted to play. And I ran Rittermound on our channel for a sample adventure, and like 80% of all the Dragonbane offerings are Rittermound. I'm like, well, I can't really play that one. I've already ran it. So the selection options were much limited. And again, same thing. I kept checking the change log, and I finally got into a game. I think it's Winter's Night or Winter's Heart is the other one. And super excited to get into that. So yeah, so we are definitely Free League stands on the channel across the whole platform. We love their games. I've been reading some books. I started a reread of the Mercedes Lackey books, Heralds of Valdemar series. There's like literally 40 books in this series. I started reading them when I was in high school, kind of off and on have checked in. And a lot of them are probably aimed at a younger audience than this 50-year-old dude or almost 50-year-old dude. But I decided I'm going to go from the beginning and go through all of them. And so I started over, reread the ones I had already read. I'm now on a couple that I had not messed with the first time through. And again, they're enjoyable. Again, are they great literature? I wouldn't say that they are, but they're enjoyable. I like the characters, and I think it's fun to learn more and more about that the setting that I really enjoy. We also played Blue Rose recently, if you're familiar, which is almost great. It's basically Mercedes Lackey the RPG, in my opinion. Like that's heavily influenced that game. So, and I've been watching a few other TV shows, but really nothing important. That's probably enough. So we will move on from there. So we are going to move now into our first improv game, which is called 10 Things. For anyone who's new here, this is an improv game where we will prompt each other in turn to try to come up with a list of 10 things that fit the prompt. The idea of the game is immediacy is better than accuracy. So coming up with a list quickly is better in terms of the game than actually coming up with a list that makes a whole lot of sense. So Doug, you are the guest tonight. Would you like to go first in terms of being prompted, or would you like to go first in prompting Chris or I?
Probably being prompted.
All right. I have one, Chris, but you have one as well.
Go ahead.
All right. You love Transformers. I grew up with Transformers. I want to hear your top 10 Transformers.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is tough. Soundwave is definitely right up there.
One.
Optimus Prime.
Two.
Let me think here. Omega Supreme.
Three.
Ultra Magnus.
Four.
Let's see here. Blaster.
Five.
Jazz is up there.
Six.
Starscream. You gotta give Starscream.
Seven.
Let's see here. Who else? I love Snaptrap. He's a triple changer. Loved him.
8.
I had him as a toy. I love that. I'm trying to think what else. Alita 1. I think we need more Alita 1 in the continuity, and then Megatron. Of course, 10. You gotta get up for Megatron.
That was in fact a list of 10 things. I don't even remember the name now, but my parents bought me. It was like one of the few airplane Autobots.
Okay,
I think that it's the one that it was like came to Earth and was frozen. And
then Jetfire.
It was like
Skyfire. Yeah,
one of it was like the really big one. It was like $40 or $60. I mean, it was a huge thing. And I brought it home and took it apart and never got it put back together. Like it was, I loved taking things apart as a kid. I was probably one of my, ADHD sort of things. And I was just like taking a screw, all of a sudden a spring went, and then the whole thing just sort of crumbled into parts and it was never put back together again. So I don't think I even changed it. I don't think I even transformed it. It came in robot, it stayed a robot, and then it became a pile of Legos.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. All right. So Doug, to keep the circle going, you will actually prompt Chris for his list of 10 things.
Oh. Let me think. Chris, 10 things that do you do a lot? Do you go to a lot of conventions?
A little bit.
10 things you enjoy about going to conventions.
Ooh. Seeing familiar faces.
1.
Trying new games.
2.
Horrible food.
3.
Finding good restaurants.
4.
Sleeping in.
5. Liar.
Yeah. Staying up really late.
6. Yeah, there you
go. Meeting new people.
7.
Buying new things.
8.
Getting lost in a convention center and finding something new you never thought you'd find.
9.
And having my own bed.
10. That wasn't in fact a list of 10 things. 2 of them I think are bullcrap, but the other 8 were pretty good.
I can say the last one because my wife doesn't listen to this. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So to wrap things up here, you will prompt me for my list, sir.
All right. Let's stay with the Transformers thing. How about 10 bad names for Transformers?
Oh, I love this.
Watch him a Gidget.
Made up.
Watch him a Gidget, yeah. Rodimus Prime.
Ooh,
no.
Optimus Beta.
3.
Screaming of the Stars. Nah, these are
4.
terrible. Log.
5.
Slinky.
6.
Captain Transfoman.
7.
Any of the GoBots. Coptor. Yeah, that was it.
Coptor.
And a pile of parts that used to be a Transformer.
10.
Hey. That was, in fact, a terrible list of 10 things. All right. So we're going to move into used books. This is generally I like to call the meat and potatoes of the show. It's usually the longest part, but not always. And the idea is here we're going to talk about a game that one of us has either played or ran. And there's something about that game that we want to mine for lessons learned, things that went particularly well that we've taken with us into future games. Maybe something that went terrible. We tried to do a thing and it didn't work, and we learned from it not to do it or try to do it differently. Doug, you are the guest tonight. Do you have a game campaign session that you can talk about, please?
So I do. I'll give you a little background on my gaming history.
Sure.
I did not grow up with Dungeons and Dragons, D&D. I was not. My parents were part of that whole, satanic panic movement back in the 80s. So I was not allowed to play D&D. I was allowed to play this game right here. This was the Star Wars West End Games D6 system, and to this day I love the system. This is what I always have. I just love it for what it is, because it came out during a time when we didn't have a whole lot of Star Wars, and it kind of filled in a lot of that gap of between Return of the Jedi and Episode 1, and it gave us more insight on certain things that we saw on screen, and so I loved it. I loved every part of it. I actually a few years ago went back and did an actual play of the Star Wars D6 system on my show, and I just fell in love with it again, and it went so well. I think we did a 2-parter. I went back, I think it was a year later, and we did another 2-parter, and we kind of kept it all in the same timeline. I kept the same characters and everything, so it kind of I love the fact that I kind of was Dave Filoniing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that? Can we use that as a verb?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of became my own Dave Filoni as I was building.
You need a hat though.
Yeah, exactly. And I just love that so much. That was so much fun, and it seems to be really well received. And I always that's kind of what you wanted to do when you were younger playing this game, and now you're kind of now doing it as an adult. It seemed to really click, and the players seem to really enjoy it, and I have plans to go back and bring back those characters and keep on continuing and just kind of have my own Star Wars timeline, like Dave's doing with his content and kind of filling out the universe. And I think that's awesome. You'll notice there's a trend going on in this podcast where it's mostly 80s references with me. Because that's what I grew up with. But I loved that Star Wars system, and it was really neat to kind of go back, and we did kind of tweak a few things just because there were some older modules that didn't quite fit some of the newer stuff that's been put out. So I did have to kind of go back and kind of.
I'm not super familiar myself, but I believe is Pablo Hidalgo. I think that's how you say his name. He's on the story group for Star Wars, and I think he was also part of the team that put that book together, or he was like a consulting person. And there's a lot of things from Mandalorian and even Andor that are in those books. People are like, where'd that come from? And there's a guy on Twitter who's like, he opens the book, this is where that came from. So there's actually a lot of things like Easter egg sort of stuff. If you read through those books, you will find elements that Filoni and was it Gilliam? Terry Gilliam did the Andor, I think. Andor's one of the best TV shows in the history of the world.
Oh, it's very, very good.
Is there a sample adventure in those Star Wars books? Is there an actual starter adventure?
I don't think so. I pulled Tatooine Manhunt, because of course at the time the Mandalorian was really big, and I thought, let's do something that's kind of that pulls in some of the bounty hunters, and so we did that. But yeah, you can still get a lot of those modules. I don't think that there is a sample adventure in here, to be honest.
Because I have recently it came out a 20th anniversay edition box set. I purchased that because I did not have a copy of the West End D6 game in my library, so I now have it for that. But I guess to circle back around to the point of this particular section, though, so is there something about that game that you want to try to pull out? Was it revisiting an old classic? Was it trying to establish your own timeline? I know we've talked a little bit before about playing in an established IP, and does that limit your characters? Because like we can't blow up the Death Star because we know Luke has to do that, and we can't kill Luke Skywalker because we know he has to blow up the Death Star. So is there anything about that you thought was particularly interesting or difficult?
I don't think, I mean, I like the fact that it was kind of, even though you're playing in an established IP, I felt like, okay, and yeah, I did have to kind of tweak a few things here and there. It felt really good to kind of just like make that world my own and kind of create something that probably didn't actually happen or probably would have never happened. I guess just to kind of like even if something happens, like, because there were a few things that happened, there was like that's not how that would have worked in the Star Wars universe. But you kind of just let it go with your players and kind of just go, okay, like maybe something would have caused this particular event to happen, or caused this particular player to act this way. So yeah, it is hard when you play in an established IP. You're right, to kind of make sure that you're staying in that, but just don't get wrapped up into it. Sometimes just let your players do what they want to do.
Yeah,
that sometimes just creates more, a better experience overall than anything else. So
I know, Chris, you have ran a few Star Wars games that are like sort of like side by side with established canon. Obviously the Redemption podcast exists within like the Clone Wars era, or at least that's when it started. But I think you've mentioned before, like at conventions, you'll run a game where you're like on the Death Star before it gets blown up, and you're doing things that also kind of like coincide with the movies and stuff. So I'm sure you have thoughts on this.
Yeah. I ran, I have it written. It's basically the players are all independent contractors on the Death Star, and all of a sudden the alarms go off and you're being attacked, and you have to deal with, okay, are we going to escape? What are we going to do? And depending upon how the players do things, because usually they're mechanics or contractors.
Right.
I mean, one of the games, it turned out that they were the group that forgot to put the shield over the exhaust port.
Mm-hmm.
So then they were rushing to try to close the exhaust port. And of course, things didn't go well for them. They ended up escaping with a Lambda class shuttle. They're like, yay, we're going to leave. And then they hear Darth Vader's voice say, pick me up now. They're like, oh, rats. I guess we're coming to get you, sir. And that's how it ended. Or I had another one where they took off from the Lambda class shuttle and joined the rebellion. And not too far in the distant future, they were the ones that had the Lambda class shuttle that they used in Return of the Jedi.
Nice.
So
have you ever had players that have like wanted to change canon, like a situation where it's like, okay, like, yeah, we'll be able to get the shield up over the exhaust, and save the Death Star in this situation? Have you ever had like any of those situations yet?
Not really. Okay. But like in that particular game, it's very lighthearted. It's very comical. One of you plays literally a janitor who was an ex-clone, so he's several years old. Yeah. And most of the time I gave him the name the Grand Mop, making fun of the Grand Moff.
Yep.
So then he'd run around with a mop. That was his weapon. So it was very lighthearted. That was supposed to just be, kind of a comic relief type game. More with like Redemption, we tied in a few times with the actual main characters, but they were there just to have an emotional moment and then move on. They weren't designed, like the story wasn't designed for them to impact whatever battle was going on. It was, oh, you get to meet Ahsoka for a minute and she failed at a mission and this is what happens.
Nice.
So I never set it up where they could impact anything.
Okay.
Just because my brain doesn't want to think about how would it actually change canon.
Yeah.
And how would you affect it? And I'm not a big fan of that. Let's do an alternate reality where you kill Darth Vader when he's, just first puts on the suit. I'm like, that'd be tough. The Emperor was very smart and protected him. It wasn't as simple as you just walked up and stabbed him. So I didn't really, I don't let the players do that, but I didn't design the story to go in that direction.
Right. And that's certainly, the GM has a lot of control. I mean, you can just not put Darth Vader in the story. You know, it's a big galaxy, despite what the movies would have us believe, that not everyone's related to a Skywalker. Like, you could be in places where they've never even heard of Jedi and still be in the Star Wars universe. So there's a lot of variety that you can explore there. But I have to think that if I'm sitting down to play Star Wars, part of the draw for me is that maybe I will interact with those characters, or, you know, but it doesn't have to be, you know, T-bone into Luke Skywalker as much as, like, I really like the idea of you're in like the same battle, but in a different place. You know, you're one of the shuttles that takes out a TIE fighter that was the one that almost blew up Luke before he went into the trench run, type of a thing. Like, you're participating and you're helping canon continue rather than trying to off-rail it. I do like the idea, though, of like a one-shot, especially like a convention game where you do let people break canon, because then you don't really have to deal with the after. You just let them think, what did you just do? Like, they get to go home and think about, oh my gosh, we killed Vader before Luke, or we did this before that. How would that have changed things? And I think there's a lot of fun in that versus a GM trying to, like, okay, now I have to rewrite Star Wars because you did this thing right. So I think it would work better in a one shot to allow for canon breaking than it would be for that. So because I believe I have played the West End game a couple times, but it's literally been like 30 years ago. If you wouldn't mind a quick refresher, how does that, because it's a D6 system, right?
It's a D6 system. Usually you're rolling 2, 3, or I think it's 4. And it's, you're trying to get a target number.
So you're adding them together, or trying to.
You're adding them together, and sometimes there's a +1 depending on your you know your skill rating. But yeah, it's usually you're just, and then depending on the version, if you roll any 6s, I think it is on one of the die, it becomes a wild die, and you can kind of explodes. So you get to re-roll it, and then if it still comes up as 6, you can keep re-rolling it until it doesn't. But so I like exploding die and die mechanics in general, and I think that's one of the reasons why, is because of that game.
Nice.
All right.
It's been a while since, it's been a few years since we played our last session. So yeah, and it's but yeah, I love that game growing up.
Yeah, I've only played it once. I played a lot of the Fantasy Flight game, but only the West End once, and only the D20 one a few times.
I don't think I've ever played the D20 one.
I haven't either.
It's D&D, 3rd edition, just skinned with a Star Wars flavor, and we kind of broke the system by making a droid with 2 arms with lightsabers, and it was killing Jedi left and right. But.
Nice. That is one thing that I try to stay away from. When I run that system, is that I tend to encourage my players not to be Jedi, just because they can get so overpowered, and it's just like, okay, well, this is, why are we doing like?
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I remember talking to someone else about that. Is that, again, if I'm going to play Star Wars, I kind of want to be a Jedi. Like, I think that's just a natural tendency for a lot of players. But for the game to make Jedi, they kind of have to be more powerful than other people. But then you get that thing where, so it's the Jedi and the hanger-on, so that's not any fun. So I do wonder, like, is there a way to balance a game where you can have a Jedi who's doing flips and force choking people or force pulling people, whatever, don't be evil, and then you have the smuggler with a blaster, and they both can feel equally cool the whole time?
Yeah. I mean, the redemption show. Mike's character is a gunslinger and a pilot, where, Kaylee's playing the Jedi.
Nice.
A lot of that has to do with, as a GM, working with your players and going, hey, let's keep this balanced, please. Don't jump so far up in the force powers, take some other skills and stuff like that. And then I think as a GM, the challenge there is throwing other obstacles at them that don't require you just to kick the door down or flip over the door. So now you're going to kind of steer that player to picking other skills. So it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of lock picking. Great. I should start taking subterfuge, or not subterfuge, sorry, skullduggery, or mechanics, so I can be useful other than trying to kick this steel door down that, it's a blaster door. You're not kicking it over. You got to stick your lightsaber in there and wait 10 minutes as it slowly cuts through it. So I think that's one of the tricks I used I've run a convention game where everybody was Force users, and one girl came to the table and said, "I really want to play a droid."
Oh, nice.
And I went,
That's pretty cool.
I can hand you a droid, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to feel underpowered if we get into combat. And she was like, "Great. Can he just be like a walking library? He's just got worthless knowledge, and all he does is just walk around in combat going, you should probably use Form 7. You should use Form 5. And I was like, as long as you understand what your character is going to do and that you don't want to get hit in combat or anything. And she loved it and actually ended up being the hero of the show because she ended up figuring out how to pull the air out of the ship and everybody passed out and stopped the fight.
I love that. I love that so much.
I just said to, I think that's where, session 0, if you have that conversation and people know what to expect, they can't be upset if they're underpowered because they set themselves up to be there.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do agree that in every system, being a Jedi naturally makes you better at everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Fantasy Flight games, you can make the best pilot, but then you can make a Jedi who can then throw force powers into their piloting checks, and they're naturally better.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's, you got to find the balance in there. I like oddball characters like the droid. I would have had so much fun with that droid.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, my favorite profession in Fantasy Flight games is the Politico, who does nothing but taunt the enemy and give boost dice to his allies.
Mm-hmm.
In combat, might shoot the blaster, but is more like pointing and shooting over his shoulder and still talking. I think that's fun to be like, okay, you guys get blue dice, they get black dice. Now this happens, that happens. You guys get some strain back. And at the end of it, I've done 1 point of damage.
Kind of like the Warlord from 4th edition. Sort of like your battlefield commanding and making everyone else better and hindering the opponents, but you yourself, and I may be misquoting 4th edition a little bit, but I don't remember the Warlord being like the frontline fighter. They were more the tactician that allowed everyone else to be better at what they do. Which I really liked, actually. One of the things about 4th edition, I wish we had a Warlord character in 5th edition.
Yeah. So I enjoy those type of characters, but I also enjoy flawed characters that aren't going to always succeed.
Sure. Yeah.
Or that make a sandwich on every chance they get.
Exactly. Caleb, our little Caleb book there.
Yeah.
I did put, I'm sure I'm not the first and only person to do this, but I did put a lightsaber in my D&D games back in the day. I called it a Sunblade. I actually think there are those now. I think mine was independently created. But I remember this was back in my college days, and basically it was just a hilt. And then once you became attuned to it, like the blade would come out, and and I told the guy, I remember, I was like, okay, so this is basically a lightsaber in D&D. So it doesn't work like a regular sword. It has no weight to it, because this was before Filoni. I thought lightsabers were basically, had no weight at all. I said, so if you critically fail with this, you're going to roll again. And if you roll really badly, you're going to cut off one of your own limbs because this is such a dangerous, so powerful and dangerous weapon. The first time they used it, literally the first roll, they rolled a 1. I said, okay, roll it again. They rolled another 1, so they cut their own leg off. That was the only time they had been used in combat, and it completely screwed them over. I thought, that's about how that should go.
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's Star Wars. A lightsaber comes out, a limb comes off.
It's just usually someone else's.
For sure.
Awesome.
See, I did the same thing. Except I didn't call it a sun sword. It was just a psionic blade. I said, you have a hilt that you channel your psionic power through, and it glows, red and extends. And it's like it was basically a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do the whole you cut your own arm off. I said you have to train to use it, and until you're trained, you take negatives.
So this probably, not really a spoiler, but it's 12 years old at this point, but our Made Men campaign, which is the first ever actual play we did on the show, and one of the things that launched us into whatever fandom we had for a while. Evan's character had a blade that was a dagger, but it had like a little sort of blowy psionic blade that came off of it. And what was going to happen had that game continued is that the more powerful he got, the longer the blade was going to be. So it basically was a lightsaber dagger that would eventually have become a lightsaber sword, but we just didn't get to play to that point. But that's basically what it was. It just had got around to it.
Nice.
All right. So I definitely have enjoyed touching base touching base back on the D6 game, is there anything else specifically about that campaign that you want to talk about before we move on?
Just that my players were awesome. I shout out to them because, they're the ones that kept me on my toes, and you know what? They made the session memorable. So that's all that's pretty much what I'm gonna say.
Was this for your channel? Is can
that's for our channel,
it?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go watch it. Yeah, there's we did two different two-parters and kind of kept them all on the same timeline.
Okay. So Victory Condition Gaming on YouTube. So you can go check it out. People want to watch how this West End D6 system ran. Go check it out.
It might not be run very well, but at least you can see it being run. I guess that's the
Did your players have fun?
Oh, absolutely, and that's all that really matters,
you
right?
Did it right.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to move into our second improv game, and this is Where Have My Fingers Been? This is an improv game. We're basically going to take turns prompting each other to create a short scene that involves two or more characters, and we're going to kind of puppeteer them out with our fingers. Doug, you again are the guest tonight, so would you like to go first in terms of prompting Chris or I, or would you like to be prompted to conduct the scene first?
I think I'll probably go again and be prompted because
All right.
I'm curious to see how this plays out.
Oh, so you want to just go first and then rip the Band-Aid off?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. You have to sing the song first. Are you familiar with the song?
No. So I guess you'll have to sing it. Okay. I guess you'll have to go first then.
Well, I can teach you the song. It's very simple. It's Where Have My Fingers Been? I said, Where Have My Fingers Been? So you have to sing that first.
All right. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
Your fingers are two civilians in a air base somewhere out in the desert watching Autobots and Decepticons face off in a world that doesn't know what Transformers are.
All right. And I just take and
you just start. Yeah. So basically outside their window, they just start seeing Optimus Prime and Starscream and Megatron, and they're just sitting there like eating their sandwiches.
I'd be like, one of them would be like, do you see what's going on out there? And yeah, I do. What the heck is, what are those things? Maybe it's the new Teslas. I don't know. Elon's doing some weird things over there in that desert. Yeah, I have no idea. Wow, they're like blasting each other. That's crazy. What are those cube things that they keep like moving around? What? Now they disappeared. Oh wait. They're cars and airplanes. What the? Wait a minute. One of them just transformed into a tape deck? Who uses tape decks anymore? Nobody uses tape decks. Gosh, like holy smoke, these guys must be super old. No wonder why they're fighting each other. They're probably just grumpy old robots. Because, they just flew away. Great. Maybe let's hope that they don't come. Let's hope that they don't come back.
And that's where your fingers have been.
Yeah, that's where my fingers have been, I guess.
All right.
Yay.
So then you will now prompt Chris, and then Chris will finish up by prompting me. So once again, Chris must sing the song first.
Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
All right. Chris, your fingers are, let me think here. I think of what I can give you for. All right. One of them is a new recruit for G.I. Joe, and the other one is Sergeant Slaughter trying to recruit him in and bring him into shape into the Joe team. So I'm trying to stay on that whole 80s vibe.
And we actually just played G.I. Joe a few weeks ago. He was Duke in that one.
Yeah. Sir, Private Ross reporting for duty. What'd you say? Get down and give me 20. 1, 2. I'm a role player. This is going to be so hard. 3, 4. Are you kidding me? You want to be a Joe? And that's all you got? 4. I need my inhaler. Oh, you don't need an inhaler. You can use my inhaler. It's made out of bourbon. I don't think that's going to work, sir. Look at me. I'm a specimen of physical peak. What? Here, let me show you. Oh, I broke another one. And that's where my fingers have been.
Love it. Love
it. Excellent. Very good.
Nailed it.
All right. So let's bring the bar back down. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
Your two brothers that have just opened one Transformers toy.
Oh, do you realize what we have? Of course I realize what we have. What do you think? I'm an idiot? Well, you are younger than me by 12 seconds. That makes you dumb. But I learned from your mistakes. But this is a G1 in package Optimus Prime mint condition. Let's play with it. No, we can't. You got to keep it in the package forever. What in the world could that be? What? Where? I'm going to kill you. And that's where my fingers have been.
Yay.
All right. So we will move into cryptozoology, and this is going to be an exciting one tonight. This is where we take a look at a monster, usually from D&D, but not always. And we talk about ways that we could use this monster, or we're talking about ways maybe we have used this monster. And tonight, Doug brought us a monster we have not played with before. It's from the Vaesen?
Yeah, from Vaesen. I say Vaesen.
Vaesen.
I think that's how it's, yeah.
Which is a free league game. It's a Nordic Gothic horror. Or is it Scandinavian? Is that the same thing?
Yeah. It's
not probably. I probably offended a lot of people, but I think in the
you're
book,
good.
Yeah,
you're good.
So it's kind of like Call of Cthulhu, sort of mystery with monsters, but it's like based on Nordic folklore. Yes. And the creature we're going to talk about is called the Wood Witch. Now, since you are, again, sort of the Free League ambassador, give me the quick pitch on Vaesen more than I already did. Like, what is it? What is about that game? Why should people go check it out?
So Vaesen, if it's very story driven and very theater of the mind. It's if you like that type of RPG, it uses our D6 year zero engine. You have 4 core attributes, and you have skills based off the attributes, and whatever your rank is in the attribute and the skill, that's how many D6s you're rolling. And when you want to succeed at something, you have to roll 6s. As long as you usually roll 1 6, you succeed. If you roll multiple 6s, it's a greater success. If you don't roll any 6s on the first roll, you can re-roll those dice once, but usually you take on some sort of condition. And it can be scared, it can be angry, and what that does is that gives you a negative 1 to your dice pools going forward until you address the condition. Very, very rules light. It's, if folks have played Tales from the Loop, it's kind of similar to that. But you play as investigators as part of society, and you get sent out to these small villages and towns in this mythic Scandinavia, and you're basically trying to research and figure out why these towns and villages are plagued with these things that are going on. And usually it's some sort of Nordic folklore creature that's causing havoc, and you're trying to figure out how to appease it, how to eradicate it. Basically, because it's like taking place in the late 1700s, and humanity's advancing, and so they're kind of pushing out these creatures that have been living in the wild, and now they're trying to fight back and try to retake what was theirs. And I think it's just it's a very niche game, but it's been very, very popular for us the last probably 18 months or so. And it's got some beautiful art, and I wasn't quite sure how it was going to be.
Yeah, so I was looking through the core book the last couple of days. I knew this was the monster we were going to talk about. I had not played the game, was not really familiar with it, and one of the things that I noticed, at least for the monsters I didn't look at all of them, but for the most of the ones that I looked at, they weren't things that you could just kill. Like, even if you did defeat them, they would come back. Like, there's a something that you have to do, whether it be come to an agreement. There might be a specific ritual that you have to uncover, which kind of makes me think of like Supernatural, the TV show, where it's not just hit things with sticks. It's like you got to find the body, or you got to appease the spirit, or whatever the case may be. So I really like that as a concept that makes these monsters feel special and unique and powerful. Like, that you can't just kill it. You got to hit with a stick until it doesn't move. That's not going to solve your problem, at least not long term.
Sure.
But the Wood Witch specifically, so tell us what the Wood Witch is.
So the Wood Witch is like this female character that kind of looks almost deer-like a little bit as well, and it basically is like the guardian of the forest, and whenever like a human like mistreats the forest or mistreats animals in the forest, it usually tries to it evokes its wrath on that particular person, and uh, it sometimes will also shapeshift into different animals. So maybe you'll see like a rabbit or a deer in the wild, and it's actually a woodwife that has changed into this form. And they also have like this charm ability where if you like get too close to them, or if you get too enthralled with them, they make you go mad and you wander the forest, and you're not quite the same. And I thought it was, when I was reading the core rule book, when we first put it out, it was like one of those characters that's like, yeah, I could see having my players make some pretty difficult choices while dealing with this particular folklore creature, because it's not easy to eradicate, and if you eradicate it, then there's some bad things that can happen. And a lot of times back in the 1700s, people hunted for food, so it's not like they're purposely going out and maybe doing something malicious to the wildlife creatures. It could be that they're trying to you know provide food for their families, and the woodwife doesn't see it that way.
I think I called it wood witch before. It is woodwife is the creature.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed, at least with that creature, is that it gives you like 4 like scenarios where this creature might come up. So like if you're just flipping to the DMG or the bestiary, whatever for this game, it'll be like, woodwife, here's 4 things that might have happened. And there's like a character who's become enthralled and now has left their home and their life and they're wandering the woods. There's another one where someone is overhunted and the woodwife is now retaliating against them. So I really like that aspect. Now, I've never played Vaesen, so obviously I've never used this creature. So beyond those, have you used this in an adventure, or do you have any thoughts on how you could use this in an adventure?
I have had used this in it was like one of our first actual plays of Vaesen that we did on the show. Was I wrote a scenario just because this town was being plagued by this creature that would entrance the villagers, and it was really, and that basically what I had going on was, the villagers were going out and they were hunting and providing for their the families in their village, and the wood witch didn't like that because she was very much all about the forest, and the only way you can eradicate the wood witch, I mean, you can appease her, you can sometimes give her gifts, and she'll kind of be nicer to you, but the only way to actually get rid of her is if you burn down the forest from you have to destroy the forest from the center out. And once you destroy the woodwife,
the forest dies.
The whole area turns into a wasteland. So you've got a really great choice for your players. Yes, you're going to get rid of this creature, but guess what? Your village is now going to be in a wasteland, and it's not going to be able to be sustained. So how do you want to proceed once they kind of make that call? And I love putting players in that type of situation that kind of makes them go, oh, well, what is the right call here? What do you? And a lot of times it surprises you. I think Philly does really well in a lot of our adventures and scenarios where we put we give the GM tools to put players in those types of situations, and it always amazes me how they end up. I think it's a lot of fun.
All right. So, Chris, again, I don't think you've played this game before, but just on the description that Doug and I have shared, any thoughts on how you might use a woodwife, or just anything in general about the creature, or how you might use them?
I like how you said if you kill one, it kind of ruins the area.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of neat if the area next to it, that woodwife is now trying to find a mate, basically, to make another woodwife to fix the other area. And now your players have to deal with, she's trying to seduce people and trying to enthrall them, and lead the people away, and are they being kidnapped? What's going on? And she's just trying to find the right person. It'd be fun to make that one of the players too.
Sure.
And then they have to make a decision. Are they going to help rebuild this forest or leave it a wasteland?
Yeah, that was kind of my first thought too, is that you come to a place after the woodwife has already been destroyed, the forest is turning into a swamp or to a wasteland, and your job is to go find a replacement woodwife. So you have to like go. It's like The Bachelor, but for woodwives. Like, hey, you should come to our village, and these are all like we will share you once a year with gifts. Like basically you're trying to woo a woodwife away from their place to come to yours, and that's probably more of a silly, funny scenario than what this game is typically used for. But I think that would be a kind of a fun little twist on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be fun.
They kind of remind me in a way, like maybe this is lore is where like a dryad came from for D&D, because it's similar.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some similarities.
Yeah, in that regards.
There's quite a few different Vaesen and folklore creatures that as I was reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of sounds familiar. That's like could be an earlier version of another creature, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. But that's one of the reasons why I love the book so much, is I just read through it and just read the Vaesen creatures and come up with all sorts of ideas. And I think Scandinavian folklore is pretty interesting. We've got some folklore creatures here in the U.S., and it's kind of pales in comparison to some of the very odd stuff that they've got over there. And I think that's really, really rad over there with these. And over there, it's like what we have for like Bigfoot, like this is what they have over there, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I do definitely agree that like I flipping through the book today was like blown away by the art, which again, we're Free League stands here. Don't get me wrong. It's not necessarily a free plug, but we love Free League. But like all their books have a quality to them. Like the Dragonbane, like the artwork in there is very similar to what I feel is in Vaesen. Now it looks different because of we don't have duck fighters in that one, but just the type of art, it has a similar look and feel to it. So I've been very impressed with the artwork and all the Free League stuff. And Forbidden Lands, love Forbidden Lands. It's such a great game.
That's actually Johan's the same the artist for both those titles. So
okay, that makes sense.
That's why, but yeah, we've that's one thing that Free League is really we're very fortunate. We've got a good 4 or 5 just really, really talented artists that really know how to hit what we're trying to put out for a product. And they say don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do it, and luckily we're very fortunate that they're so talented that they do help sell a lot of these products for us.
So again, Free League for life. But let's say we have somebody listening who generally comes to us for D&D talk, and they don't know anything about Free League. If you had to pick one Free League game to say, hey, try this one because if you like it, it's year 0 or whatever. What's your gateway drug RPG from Free League to someone who's only played other games or never played any games before?
That's a great question. So I get to ask this a lot.
Okay.
And it kind of depends on the person. I know for me, it was Mutant Year Zero, because Mutant Year Zero is post-apocalyptic mutants, and I love that it uses the same D6 system. That was my entry into Free League, and it had a lot of that D6 system reminded me a lot of the West End Games Star Wars system. So I always like that. But if you're a brand new player, I'm going to say Tales from the Loop is probably the best entry level game that we have. It's probably the most narrative. It's the most rules light. You play as kids in the 80s, in this alternate 80s, trying to figure out these weird things that are happening in your small hometown. Your kids that your parents and the adults don't really pay any attention, just like how we felt in the 80s as kids growing up. And it's very Stranger Things-ish, but not quite as horror. It's just kind of odd, and weird things are happening. And there's actually an Amazon series. The Amazon series is a little bit more adult, a little more dark, a little more depressing, but I think it does a really good job with that setting. But I would say that would be, if you're a brand new RPG player, that would be the game that I would say pick up the core rule book or the starter set. It's amazing. Now, if you love sci-fi horror, Alien, it would be my number one choice, and I think that that's probably the best implementation of our D6 Year Zero engine of all the products, because it just nails the setting and what Alien was going for, with stress and survival, and as you're playing, you're acquiring more and more stress dice, and the more ones you roll on those stress dice, the worse things start happening, and it just becomes like this big avalanche of I guess avalanche of demise that your players kind of endure, until the end. And I love how Thomas created that. It definitely, I'll be honest with you, when they told me that we got the Alien license, I was like, dang, how do you make that an RPG? It's tough. Like, nobody wants to play an elimination RPG, because what if you die halfway through and you're just sitting there watching everybody else play? That's not fun. But of course, we if that does happen, you can play an NPC. We usually stat out the NPC players, but like that implementation, the way he tweaked that Year Zero engine for that IP, just, it nails it. It really feels like you're playing that aliens experience as a tabletop game. I think that, and I think it just does that really, really well. So if you're a fan of Alien and Aliens, those first two movies, I think that and you want an RPG that gives you that's the game that I would suggest you pick up out of first. But
we did a sample adventure of the Alien game, and we also did one for Dragonbane, but Dragonbane uses a different system, so it doesn't use it. But yeah, we have definitely more on the way. So Chris, have you played a lot of these Year Zero engine or Free League games?
Nope.
Oh, Chris, we're gonna change that. Yeah. We're changing that for you as soon as we get off this podcast, my friend.
Yeah. So Tom is kind of the one who really sort of put this in front of me, and then has kind of converted me to it as well. So we definitely have more on the way. We want to do several of these. Forbidden Lands, Tales from the Loop, Basin is definitely on there. Hopefully we'll get some more going. And then I had something I was going to say, and my brain just, no, it's fine. My brain just melted down. I was going to tell you, so when you're in the next Free League meeting and they're talking about IPs, Thundercats, like, tell them to go after Thundercats.
Dude, you have no idea, like, how much I would love to get. I mean, I guess I shouldn't really, I would love to get any of those 80s IPs that I grew up with. Like, when they announced I've been an Alien fan for years. So like that was a big thing for me. I was super pumped that we got that. I knew for years that we had the Blade Runner IP, and like I grew up with that movie. I love that movie so much too. And so like to sit on that for years, knowing that we had that and that was coming out, killed me that I couldn't talk about it, because I'm such a huge fan of that.
I played that at a recent convention. I played the starter.
So good. And then Walking Dead, my family, we would have viewing parties, at our house, where we'd invite, our whole living room worth of people to come over every Sunday night and watch Walking Dead. So Walking Dead was definitely one of those shows that as we, became parents, we'd all kind of get together. That was how we would socialize, is we'd have everybody over on Sunday night and watch Walking Dead. So that has a really special, place in my heart for some really special memories too. So yeah, adding any kind of 80s cartoon IP would just set it over the edge for me, because I would love that.
Excellent.
We could do Mask, the cartoon.
Mask would be cool. Mask would be cool.
I used to love that one. And Voltron. Voltron would be hard.
Voltron's pretty good. The new series is pretty good.
Yeah.
The new Masters of the Universe is pretty solid. I was really kind of disappointed. I was sad that they announced the Masters of the Universe RPG, and then I can't think of the publisher now.
Cortex
Fandom. Yeah,
Cortex. It was supposed to be a Cortex. I thought it was like on the way, and all of a sudden it's just nothing.
Well, Cortex, they sold the Fandom sold the RPG Cortex system to I can't remember what the studio is, but evidently Direwolf, yes, Direwolf, and they're doing some really cool stuff. But I guess that IP couldn't come over with that agreement, so which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because I was pretty excited about that as well.
I love Cortex too, by the way. It's really, really modular. So you can, I've done a Transformers RPG with it, a session with it, because I took the old tech specs and statted them out and gave them dice ratings and all that. Oh yeah. I love doing stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up here. No. Again, we bring people on because we want to talk to them. So absolutely, you're doing what you're supposed to do. But we're going to wrap things up. We do an audience Q&A. I don't think we have anybody watching right now, but just in case, I see one viewer, but I think it might be me because I'm monitoring the stream. But we always have one question that we ask everybody. But before we get to that, one last time, where can people find you on the internet? Any links you want to drop? Anything about that you want to do? Now's the time.
You can check out Victory Condition Gaming on YouTube, on Twitch, Facebook, all that. If you go to any gaming convention and Free League is there in the United States or in North America, more than likely it's me that'll be there. So feel free to stop by and say hi. That's even if you don't want to talk about Free League games, I love just talking about games in general.
Transformers,
and as you can tell, yeah, exactly. Any '80s cartoon, pretty much. I'll talk Ninja Turtles. Okay. I mean, we haven't even discussed Ninja Turtles for this episode. Feel like we need to do a second episode and just have Ninja Turtles on. I just love connecting with people. That's what I think is so great about this hobby and this industry is like we have a passion for creating moments and escape our lives with these games and we get to be something that we wish we could be on the big screen or instead of what we're doing right now and that's usually adulting and adult responsibilities and that kind of just to be able to kind of we wish we can kind of just separate away from that for a little while, and I think that's a really special thing to be able to be a part of, and I try not to take that for granted. Working in this industry is just what is awesome, and even as a content creator, I mean, you guys even know you get to help people enjoy these games too, and connect with them, and you probably made a whole lot of friends that you probably wouldn't have made otherwise.
The guy above
exactly, right? Yeah. So like that's something really, really special, and anyway, we could go on all day about that too, and I think I think we're all part of this big wheel of a hobby and industry that is really unlike any others that are out there. Everybody's all cutthroat usually in a lot of these industries, and it's nice to be able to be a part of something that everybody wants to see. We want everybody to enjoy it. We want everybody to succeed and have fun with. So
just want people to have fun. I self-identify as Donatello, by the way. Chris, where can people find you on the internet?
Twitter, Burlew_Chris, or here every other Wednesday, every other Thursday doing the Dragonlance game, and then every other Monday doing Smuggler's Blues, which is the continuation of the Redemption story. We're just streaming it now, which has been fun. We've had a few people who are really active in the chat, and it's been fun because they'll say something and then later I work what they say into the story somehow.
Nice.
So that was one of my goals with doing the stream with that show was throw something out there. Let me see if I can work it in. And if I can't, oops. Yep. But so far I've been able to work some of the stuff in. Yep. Some of the stuff I thought was appropriate.
Have you ever had anything that you were just like, you wondered if you could fit it in and you were able to, and like you were just amazed by it? Like oh my God, I didn't.
We've only done 2 of the streams.
Okay.
This week, actually, the players threw something in it. They rolled a triumph. So they're like, oh, I find this droid in this barn. Why is it here? And then I was like, I looked down at my notes. I'm like, well, let me tell you, you're gonna find out here very shortly because it was already in my plan, and it actually just kind of worked out that fit in there just perfectly.
I love that.
And afterwards, the players are like, "You fit that in perfect." I'm like, "Well, actually, you did. You just created something that just gave you something extra to have in the combat." So it worked out well.
That's cool.
Excellent. As for myself, of course, at the RPG Academy, pretty much everything I do can be found here. If you search the RPG Academy and you find something, it's probably me. So whatever platform you're on. Right now, my biggest focus has been the sample adventures I've continuously plugged throughout this program. We're trying to do those basically every other week, but we also have some randomization. Just like Saturday, Chris and I got on with Devin. We did a Fate Masters of Undar, which is basically the He-Man setting. So we did that recently. We have an OG cast Star Trek Adventures coming out soon. We're going to work on that one. The Vaesen one I'm hoping to get to, Call of Cthulhu 7th Edition, Engine Heart, Avatar The Last Airbender. We have so many. We're going to get to them as we can because they're a lot of fun, and I just enjoy really doing them. And then we do Detention here every other week. And then I'll just quickly mention Farm to Fables is my Smallville podcast, and then Healthy Minds Alliance is my AmeriCorps service podcast. It's about mental education, mental health awareness in local communities. It's very small, tiny. We had like 4 people listen to the new episode that came out yesterday, so I'd like more people to find that. It's called Healthy Minds Alliance. All right, so Doug, we don't have any questions came in, but we have one question we ask everybody, so I'll ask that of you now. Imagine you were being turned into an action figure, not you actually being turned into one, but they're going to make an action figure about Doug. What are the 3 accessories that would come in your package?
I feel like a Transformer definitely would
okay,
be like
some
that,
cross promotion too there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think what else. A cell phone, because I'm always on that. That's definitely a thing. And donuts.
Hey, I got no problem with any of those.
Nice.
What's your donut of choice? What's your go-to?
Let's see. This morning I got maple frosted.
Oh, okay.
Those are usually pretty good.
I'm a cream-filled Long John man myself. I don't like the custard. I like the cream.
All right.
Chris, I'm sure you have something to say there. What's your donut of choice, sir?
Doctor gave me a choice: give up sweets or give up bourbon. So I don't eat sweets anymore.
Okay.
All right. Well, which turtle would you be? I'm Donatello. I think Doug said he was also a Donatello. So which turtle represents you?
I feel like he's
probably Leonardo.
Okay.
All right.
I usually end up being kind of the leader in those situations.
All right.
In a way. Or Raphael, because sometimes I just get angry and want to punch things.
See, I think that's the true strength of the Turtles is that we're all the Turtles, and the Turtles of all are us, and different times, different sides come out. But anyway, so with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll be back in a couple weeks. But until then, remember, if you're having fun,
you're doing it right.
Thanks, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody.